GM Growth Fam. I'm really excited to have Dr. Asaf today with me, who's the COO and co-founder of Addressable. Been following them for a long while. Really excited to see all of the developments that they have done, the foundings that they've had, the report that Dr. Asaf made on cost per wallet, which was really exciting because a lot of the metrics I felt like I had seen before, but just seeing it all laid out, seeing it across markets, seeing it across geographies, I think that is something that we haven't seen before. So really excited to dive in. Doctor, and I really would love to mention that because you are a doctor, which I feel like a lot of people might not know about you. So really excited to have you on here.
Thank you so much, Arnav, for having me. And yeah, I can share my background story as long as you promise not to call me a doctor anymore throughout this episode.
Okay, I promise. That was the last time. Awesome. Yeah, but I would love to kick it off by knowing like what was the first thing that you did on chain? Obviously, I'd love to know what your background was before that, and then how did you get into Web3? And what was the first thing you did on chain? So yeah, any interesting story there?
It's a very interesting story. So my background was always cybersecurity and machine learning. I did 10 years in Israeli military intelligence, did a variety of data science work over there, and then 7 more years at Akamai Technologies as director of data science. I thought I was going to do cybersecurity and data my entire life, but then somewhere through my master's and PhD, I met my advisor, who was a well-known cryptographer. We started working on some cryptography papers and blockchain for the first time. The first thing I did on chain, I think it was maybe 2016, 2017. I tried implementing a paper of how to implement the decentralized poker on top of the Bitcoin network. Now, it might sound, it's a simple idea to explain. It was a nightmare implementing Bitcoin opcodes. It was, I still remember to this day, debugging this code was just a hell of a nightmare. But this was my first thing on chain. It was amazing. I fell in love with blockchain, and yeah. But the long story short led to Addressable.
I think this was not in like recent times. This is back in 2018 or 16. That is also a time where like Bitcoin Fi and development on Bitcoin wasn't the most well-known thing. Really interesting. What learnings from your time doing cryptography and cybersecurity did you port over into Addressable? And most of all, an ad tech company from data science and cybersecurity. How did you make that transition?
Yeah, when you're looking over it from the side, one thing that can be very very weird is these teams, and it's not just me, it's my founders and the other people within the company. Everybody had been for like 15 to 20 years in cybersecurity and machine learning. Like, what the hell are these guys doing with ad tech? We're not marketers. In fact, it's pretty much surprising that I managed to kind of falsely convince a lot of people on the timeline that I'm a long-time marketer. The common grounds between what I was doing before Addressable and what I'm doing within Addressable has always been data and analytics. So military intelligence is 10 years about collecting information, doing big data analytics, better understanding profiles and behaviors. In Akamai Technologies, doing cybersecurity, publishing more than 10 academic papers about how to better understand behaviors, right? When we came into blockchain, we had the academic knowledge. We implemented some blockchain apps. We did some work in this area. What we were asking companies is what's the biggest data gaps for blockchain companies? What we heard the most back then, 2021, 2022, is companies were struggling to acquire users because of anonymity. They struggle with understanding users. So for us coming from cybersecurity, military intelligence, being able to put the data together, it sounded to us like a common problem that we solved many, many times over the year. So it wasn't originally with the intent of building an ad tech company, but this is what the market wanted, right? They wanted to better understand users on chain, who they are behind that, where they're coming across the world, what they're interested in, and most importantly, how to reach out to them. And our knowledge from military intelligence, from academia, from government, from publicly traded companies was very, very useful for that. So this is kind of what made the transition into Addressable.
And then when you were trying to understand the unit economics of building the base for that and then also building the metric of cost per wallet, how did you narrow that down? Because I know Addressable is probably the only solution that's able to look at both on-chain and social data, couple that together, and then build a profile based on that. And then now you've also taken out unit economics from that. So how did that transition happen?
So the first thing we launched to market, our MVP, was a product to target wallet owners using advertisements on Twitter. That is what the market initially wanted. We were very happy when it came out. We did a huge PR with TechCrunch and some other kind of well-known crypto news websites. And the demand was huge. We got so many phone calls. I still remember these nights. This is, in a sense, what product market fit should feel like, right? But we clearly hit on a problem. We started running ads with many of kind of the known companies in the field. Core were some of the biggest DEXs back in the days. Immutable, doing kind of the biggest gaming scenes at the time. And with more and more clients, what I recall surprised me the most for someone coming with an analytical background is we were asking all of them, are you happy with the results? All of them were saying, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, we can target wallet owners using ads. We couldn't do that before. Great, but what exactly are you happy about? Like, what are you even measuring? And this is where I think we identified the biggest gap. Nobody was measuring anything. And sadly, I don't think this changed much over the past 2 years. But I think at Addressable, we realized, like, unless people are measuring and understanding their acquisition costs and their marketing efforts, when they're either advertising or working with KOLs or running PR or doing all sorts of brand awareness, unless they're measuring that, how will they even know if they're going in the right direction? How will they decide what they want to double down on? And it took us time to both build the data infrastructure to collect all of the data and provide this metric. And it took even more time leading to cost per wallet, the metric that I recently started talking more and more about, trying to find this kind of common denominator, this single metric that will help companies in Web3 understanding, are they getting their bang for the buck? Are their campaigns even working?
How have you seen, like, because I want to dive into from a marketer's perspective, when somebody looks at a metric like cost per wallet, how do you help them first, like, understand that and then optimize for that while they're using Addressable? Like, are there any specific characteristics of campaigns that marketers need to keep in mind when they're using Addressable to figure out their cost per wallet and then optimizing for that?
That's a great question. So maybe the first thing to say about cost per wallet is not directly related to Addressable. It's our desire to want to contribute to the space, to help the space grow more efficiently by having metrics. It's unrelated to what we're building at Addressable. This is a desire to make a change, right? When it comes to what we're doing in Addressable, I think one observation is that if you're looking at the goals of marketing, whether you want to kind of create the initial attention or you want to get people to engage with you on social, or whether it's more deeper down the funnel, you want to get people to adopt and ultimately convert. Most Web3 companies at the given point in time are at the start of the goals. They're typically optimizing for Mindshare and attention. They're typically still looking after the engagement. And where we see them struggling, one is with quantifying it. Like, I mean, are we able to get the high intent users on our website? Are we able to get the real traction? And two, how to measure that. This is exactly what cost per wallet is about. It's about looking at your website, at traffic that is coming through the website from different sources, from the PR you made on some notable websites, from advertisements you run, from some KOLs that you're working with, and try to estimate what's the cost of driving a user to the website that has a wallet installed on the browser. This is what we refer to as a high intent user. I think what this is really helpful with is helping companies understand what's the cost of getting a high intent user or a real crypto user that's not a bot on my website. And once they're seeing that across all channels, the first action, which is very, very simple, is if something doesn't drive you quality traffic, just cut it. That's the first thing to do. And the second thing is, once you're figuring out what is driving quality, you can analyze some additional metrics to understand what can drive even better.
No, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I was curious about when it comes to something like Mindshare and just the obsession that crypto Twitter has with Mindshare. Rightfully so, because it seems like there is so little in terms of metrics and data that we can track, that we can tangibly look at, and then figure out how to convince technical founders who really aren't understanding why is it that we're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on Mindshare. But something about Mindshare that I do want to ask you is when you talk about the first touch attribution, especially even within the, let's say, product that you're building towards, or let's say the future that you're looking at, what role do you think maybe long term Mindshare is going to play between attribution, between just metrics that we look at within Web3?
I think that if you're looking at Web3 companies, what distinguishes these companies from any other companies is that they typically have two products. They have a product they intend users to use, like a game or like a DeFi protocol to get more yield, or a lending protocol. They're building something for the users. This is one product that they're promoting. And they have another product which is unique to Web3, which is token. This is a speculation. Well, will this company succeed, and how much you want to invest in that? I think that Mindshare is always going to be very, very meaningful for the token product. I think essentially the token product is relying on speculation. How well is the company doing? These are private companies, most of them, so they can speak about anything they want. And that's always going to be correlated to market action price, right? I mean, the more people are talking about you, the more there's good news, the more people are going to evaluate the token. Where Addressable is focused is on the other product, is you're actually building a product for users. But what's unique about that in Web3 is that most product for users aren't commodities. For instance, I'm always joking about it. My grandma wouldn't understand, like, what's a DeFi protocol, right? And unless you're able to take this product offering and get it to the crypto native people, you're not going to make it. That's the reality, right? You can be on crypto Twitter all day long. You can get a lot of the Mindshare. That's great. You have lots of attention. But how do you convert that into engagement? How do you convert that into adoption, right? That's the part that I think a lot of Web3 startups are struggling.
When it comes to, especially when it comes to consumer protocols or products that are targeting a solution for the masses. When you look at something like your wallet through rate, and when you look at conversions within campaigns that are being run through you, how do you optimize for that? Or like, what are some pieces of advice that you do tell some of these founders and teams to optimize for wallet through rate? Because click-through rate
Yes.
is still understandable, but I think that wallet through rate is a really interesting metric to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we're looking at is additional metric like cost per wallet, like wallet through rate, which is still kind of a big work in progress. If you're thinking about what can we actually optimize, I mean, what are even the different knobs that we can play with to kind of make sure if it makes things better or worse? It's always the same combination, right? One, it's a target audience. We can try to target additional audiences, lookalike audience, things that are different. The second thing is the message. What are you actually promising your audience? Are they getting a reward for coming? Will they learn more for coming? I mean, is there alpha over there? What's the message? The third thing is the product. Like, what's the landing page that is waiting for there? What is the client journey? What's the experience over there? And the third thing is all of the macro, right? Is it a good market cycle? Are we in a bear? Are we in a bull? What geos are you even trying? Which is a lot of what we try to capture in cost per wallet. These are the knobs that we're playing with. With wallets like cost per wallet and with future of wallet through rate, some additional, what we're trying to surface to our clients is understanding what is the cause and effect between each one of those parameters to the results that they're getting. So they would understand maybe we're not hitting all the right audiences. Maybe we're not targeting the right places. Maybe the message is not that appealing. And if they understand it, they can walk the journey of optimizing it step by step. Startups is really, really hard, right? That if you're growing step by step and you're seeing how that improves the results, this is what the industry needs to grow.
No, absolutely. And I feel like it just some of the more bare bones basic things that need to be done sometimes are just not done in the exact way that you want it in. Because I feel like a campaign that's being run natively on Twitter, for example, right? And a campaign that could be appropriate for a crypto audience, running a campaign through Addressable are going to be two very different things. But I do want to ask you, like, when it comes to just ad spend in general, why is it that some projects are still heavily reliant on the traditional ad platforms of Twitter, Meta, so on and so forth, and especially with Web3 companies, and why aren't they looking more at solutions like Addressable? What do you feel like the gap there is? Is it a communication gap? Is it maybe they're not getting something out of it? What do you feel is the case there?
I think it's a combination of reasons. One, I'm not sure if a lot of companies are still kind of using this natively because the results for native advertisements that aren't really finding crypto people, it's disappointing. I mean, a lot of the people that I know that run native Twitter ads without using any crypto targeting, they're very disappointed with the results. But if I had to look at the reason for that, one, I think it's awareness. Like some of our happy clients that I'm asking about, like, are you happy with what you're getting, and how come we never kind of worked together before? They're kind of joking about, like, what did you think that I would just go on Google search and look for this crazy companies that matches wallets to socials? Like, I didn't even think something like that exists. So some of it is awareness, right? An additional part of that is that they're not measuring. It's the same problem we talked about earlier. If you would measure results and you do have a viable business model, you would always be looking for better results. I mean, right? That's how the alpha is supposed to work. So I think that's another part of it. Yeah, I think it generally boils down to that.
When you're looking at coming back to the report that you built, the metrics that you looked at, are there any interesting insights that you got from ads being run in different ecosystems? Like, is running ads in Solana drastically different from running ads in the Ethereum ecosystem? If that is the case, did you see any changes in terms of the metrics and the benchmarks that you were measuring at that point in time?
That's a very interesting question, and I think it can be interpreted as two, right? The first one is, where is the project we're working with is located, right? Is this a Solana project? Is this a Base project? And the second thing is, where is the target audience for that project located, right? We're working, for instance, with a lot of projects that are deployed on Solana, but when you're asking them, like, who's your target audience, they're saying there are some protocols on Base and there are some protocols on Arbitrum. We want to target these users, right? So it's the question about what kind of ecosystem affects the pricing. I think when you're looking at the KPIs and the results, like in every marketing campaign that's not any different in Web3, this is affected by so many dimensions. This is a bit of what I was trying to break down on cost per wallet. And it's very difficult to break that down even further, right? It's impacted by the market cycle. This is probably the biggest factor. It's impacted by how good is your product market fit. Naturally, if you're a wallet like MetaMask, you're going to get much better results if you're a new project that nobody ever heard of. And thirdly is, what type of audiences are you trying to target? I think all of these are affecting your results. What I think is the surprising fact that I ran into in cost per wallet is that if as a project, you're able to build this awareness, you're able to get well known, you're able to provide value, you're beating the market cycle. Like, if there's one sentence that I want people to remember, is regardless of the market is very high or it's very down, if you found product market fit, you're getting consistent results, almost consistent all year long. So don't make market cycle like this curse that, oh, if the market is down, now is a bad time. Like, if you'll trust the process, you'll improve your marketing, you'll improve your product, you're going to beat the market cycle. And the best companies in crypto, quote me on that. Talk to them. Do you stop doing user acquisition during the bear market? No way. No way. Doing user acquisition all year, and they're killing it. That's the biggest surprising fact. The market cycles affect the product without the product market fit. If you have a good product market fit, you're going to succeed also in bear markets.
Do you also feel like in terms of utility communication, when it comes to customer and user acquisition, do you feel like that is a gap that sometimes companies try to fill with, okay, let me just throw a bunch of money at Addressable and see, okay, even though my communication and my utility sucks, but that's going to solve my problem. And why I'm asking that is specifically a lot of teams tend to hire people from Web 2. And for them, a lot of the strategy in terms of user and customer acquisition is very paid focused. So do they try to shoehorn that solution in? I'm not looking for insight. I'm just looking for maybe a story that you have, which is interesting.
Yeah, it definitely does happen when somebody's coming to pour lots of money at a given point in time. I don't think it's because of people transitioning from Web 2. I think it's really about if you're looking at the life cycle of a Web 3 company, they typically have 2 points in life where they need to kind of fire all cannons at the biggest train. One is their TGE, and the second one is their token listings, right? And the reason for that is with crypto being very, very transparent, everybody know if you're not succeeding, right? I think that's a lot of the reason why people are also using bots and all sorts of kind of other metrics, right? Because if you're launching your token in on-chain, it doesn't look like a success, the market is good, the price is kind of dropping down, that's going to be the end of your project, right? So I think when that time comes, even if your tech company doesn't have the infrastructure to measure everything or to fully understand what's working or not working. It's the feeling of you have this one chance and I'm going to yell it as hard as possible because that's the make or break for these projects. I mean, being very realistic about it.
Any insights from your perspective on the life cycle of each customer that comes into a product? What are certain, let's say, heuristics that you can use in terms of your attribution targeting for users like them? Okay, if X product gets X type of people and they have certain attributes and they've stuck with a product for a longer period of time, are you able to leverage that data to make your make targeting for other campaigns or for the campaign of that company more efficient?
It's exactly what we do. And I think the interesting story is that so many people we work with, projects we partner with, are very, very biased about who their target audience is. Like the key question I'm always opening with when I'm meeting someone new is, what's your target audience? I mean, who are the people that you're trying to reach out to? Everybody are always typically using on-chain terms for that. It's the people that buy this token or operate in this protocol or has money. And what is very evident is everybody is so confident about it, right? You'll ask a marketer, who's your target audience? They're so confident about it, right? But then you're asking, what type of evidence do they have for it, right? I mean, if we're starting to look on chain and start to analyze who's actually buying, who's actually coming, what you see is that sometimes it's more emotional than rational. And a lot of what we're doing in Addressable is also characterizing the users that are performing well to go and attract more of that, which sometimes, it's not all the times, adds with a different audience than what originally the marketers would have thought, right? And I think this is where the interesting story comes into play. It's sometimes a data game, right? It's about trying out new audiences and figuring out what's working well for you and trying to kind of balance your hunches, because startups is a lot about hunches. You don't have the data for everything with actually real life data.
And one other thing that I wanted to ask, which was interesting in the report, is you looked at three categories of companies and the cost benchmarks for them. So there was DeFi, there was gaming, and there was L1, L2. Do you also feel like the benchmarks that, or let's say the trends that you saw with these three categories are also sort of playing out for other categories within the space, whether that's social fi or NFTs or so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think this market doesn't have a huge number of companies. It's definitely in the tens of thousands, but not in the hundreds of thousands. And if I would have broken down companies to like tens of different categories from NFT marketplaces to lending protocols, I mean, it would be impossible to find the signal, right? There would just not be enough data in every category. So if I'm trying to break it down, the industry to three archetypes, what I'm looking at is what is the profile of users they're looking for. And to me, it's basically three users. Are you looking for a trader? Somebody who's trying to kind of make reasonable money or yield on top of their existing money? Are you looking for a developer or builder, somebody to build on top of your product or kind of leverage some of what you're building for their infrastructure? Or are you looking for a gamer slash gambler, right? You're looking for somebody who's kind of looking to have a good time, often kind of with the sense of speculation, right? I think these three personas are probably covering the 80 to 90% of the industry. It's not about the companies. It's more about the type of users that they're after.
And any way we can completely cut out airdrop farmers or freeloaders out of the, let's say, batch of targeting that we're doing through paid ads. Because I feel like that's a huge challenge for somebody to solve. I hope Addressable does it. But is that a problem that you look at? Are there any workarounds that you figured out for that?
So it's even a discussion about whether projects want to kill the airdrop farmers. I mean, obviously, when you launch your token and these people start selling and the price starts to drop, this is the moment you regret, right? But there's sometimes the vanity metrics about, oh, our community have like tens of thousands of people. We have this amount of active users. Like if you cut out the airdrop farmers, like so many protocols who just have no usage, right? So I'm not sure nobody wants it. I can share like paid ads is definitely not the way to get fees, which you'll typically get via quests. I think that's a protocols for that. It doesn't go out to say that sometimes you'll be running ads and people that are doing airdrop farming come. But to do that, you would need solutions to kind of indicate who's a real person, what's the history of that person. We're not building these solutions. I'm not well familiar with solutions for that. I'm also familiar with projects that have tried lots of things, but eventually these are not bots. These are humans that are just really, really hungry to make more money. It's very, very difficult to block them out.
Makes sense. And then one final thing that I did want to ask you that I'm really curious about is you mentioned adoption metrics and quality of wallets that you're currently working on. Can you give us any insight into that? And I don't want any spoilers because I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, anything you could tell us why is it that you picked these two and maybe some insight into them?
Yeah, so let's start with where there's a gap, right? If you're looking at the different goals of marketing, ranging from attention, which this is exactly what Mindshare is kind of covering very, very well, engagement, which is what I think cost per wallet is measuring very well. Like, what does it take to get quality users on your website? And to the rest of it, to conversion, which I think cost per value, CPV, by the Spindle team in Antonio, who's the founder. I think this is very, very smart for conversions on chain. I think the missing part is a part between engagement and conversions, which is adoption, right? It's how do I actually measure the quality of users that are going into my website, connecting the wallet, start playing around, but have not yet converted, right? They're still kind of leveraging the features of what I have to offer. I want to check their usability of the product. And I want to try to profile them. Like when they're logging in, what do I know about them? And how do I get more of the people that are performing well? This is where quality of wallets is designed to fit in. And if I'm looking to kind of give a sneak peek into that, I think some people that have not really done user acquisition in the space would naturally assume if a wallet has more money and it's older and it's not fresh, it will probably have a better quality, right? It has a better buying intent. And on the other end, if a wallet is kind of very, very fresh and I don't know anything about that, it's very, very likely to be an airdrop farmer or something like that. Without going too much into the details, you have to wait for the full article for that. It's not necessarily about that. The adoption is really much dependent, most likely, on how much is that person part of the community and how likely are they to experience the aha moment from your product. And different product has different aha moments. It's either being a part of a community, it's either being able to make their first deal very, very successfully. It's about different things rather than necessarily looking at the past of their wallet in ages, which is what most analytics projects are looking at.
I think that's perfect. And to a really in-depth discussion about the wonderful report that you wrote, it was really exciting to understand why is it that some of the things that Addressable does and what's the psychology behind them, which is really exciting personally to me as a marketer who looks at metrics all day, all night long. So thank you so much, Asaf, to do this interview today. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Do follow Asaf on Twitter. I mean, just the level of knowledge that you will get, you will not regret following him. And definitely do check out the report that we discussed in this interview at length. It'll be linked below so you can check it out. And yeah, hope to see you in the next episode next week. GM and bye
Thank you
bye.
so much.